In a press conference, Senator George Williams, a U.S. ambassador in Italy, briefs the audience about the next steps by the American government to help the war-torn Ukraine. He asserts that the U.S. government is going to supply food and medical care to Ukraine. Moreover, the U.S. soldiers will assure the safety of Ukrainians against the Russian attack and will occupy the territory of Ukraine, for funding of $2 billion, as per the instruction of the European Union. Then he ends the press conference happily and leaves for the U.S. Embassy. In the Sokov military base, 32 miles away from the Ukrainian border, Agent Carter intrudes into the base, along with Agent Ross, to rescue a U.S. spy who has been imprisoned by Russian soldier. Carter sneaks into the prison cell and informs Ross, holding his earphone, that the spy is lifeless. Then he draws out the spying chips from his right arm with a knife. Ross, on the other side, is installing time bombs in the base. Carter crawls out of the cell, dodging the soldier, and goes to the other end to install the bombs. When he finds a prisoner in a cage there, the prisoner introduces himself as Italian, in a low tone. Then he begs Carter to help him. Carter informs Ross about him. Ross wants Carter to focus on the task and leave the man. When the Italian overhears him, he starts wailing. The soldier heeds around cautiously, after hearing his voice. They start running toward his cage. Carter hears Ross murmuring to shoot him down. Carter pulls out the gun and points toward the Italian, then he moves his hand adamantly and shoots at the lock. By this time, the Russian soldiers reach him. He shoots them down and leads the man along with him. They halt on the edge of a pond. Carter hooks himself on a line that has been attached to a pole on the other side of the pond. He shoots another soldier coming toward them, holds the Italian on his back, and zips to the other side. Meanwhile, Ross distracts the soldiers with cover fire. After escaping from the base, they explode the base camp. Then they accompany the man to a safe place. After a while, Ross scans his face on the biometric device, calculatedly, which identifies him as Andrea Olivetti, an Italian citizen, and a professor of linguistics at Kiev National University. Olivetti tells them that he is a poet and writer. When he starts singing, Ross feels annoyed and stops him indignantly. Carter contacts headquarters so they can escort them to the U.S. Embassy in Italy. After a while, they enter a submarine, and Carter emphatically gives Olivetti some food. Ross is still unhappy to coexist with Olivetti. He fumes at Carter for breaking the law of their country for a stranger. Carter states determinedly that some things need to be done, because they are right. Some days later in Italy, the news of the robbery of $2 billion aid to Ukraine has been spread all around. The media hovers over Williams wherever it spots him, to inquire about the money. He slides into his car, turning a deaf ear to the questions, and rushes back to the embassy. In the U.S. Embassy, Carter and Ross arrive wearing suits, along with Olivetti. While waiting for the senator, Carter is tossing a coin to idle away time. Olivetti wonders if the coin is his good luck charm, as he has it in the submarine too. Carter gaily states that it is just $1 given to him by his father. Ross smirks at Olivetti's observation. At that moment, Senator George Williams appears there and welcomes Olivetti warmly. He calls him a hero, as he faced imprisonment and returned as a warrior. Olivetti soundly opines that the real heroes are Agent Carter and Agent Ross, who saved his life. Carter humbly remarks that they just did their duty. Williams invites him to join his speech in the evening and share his story with the world. Olivetti accepts his invitation and bids farewell to Carter and Ross, hugging them ardently. Then, he leaves to prepare for the evening. The senator's smiling face turns cold, and he orders Carter and Ross to report to his office. In the office, Williams scolds them, as they were supposed to complete the mission without involving the third person. Then, he inquires about the chips. Ross takes out a small case from his pocket and hands it over to him. Williams opens the case and places it in the locker. Then he commands them to meet him in Washington. Ross asks him if he wants them to report. William replies in the negative, as they are not going to record the operation officially. Carter perks up, agitated, and asks him the reason for not submitting it as an official mission. Williams dictates that they need to leave, instead of responding. The secretary opens the door so they can step out. Outside the office, Ross expresses calmly that the orders are always like that. Carter walks out in a frenzy, leaving Ross behind. In the evening, when Senator George Williams goes out of the office for a speech, Carter sneaks into his office and gains access to his laptop, which shows a balance of $2 billion still in his account. He clicks pictures of the information. Concurrently, upon not finding his written speech, George Williams directs his secretary to reach the event destination. Then he leaves the car to collect the speech from his office. When he steps into the office, he is bewildered to find Carter there. Carter accuses him rigorously of stealing the money for the Ukrainian victims. William defensively states that he is just following the orders of the U.S. government, as he was ordered to bring the money back to the people of the U.S., to whom it belongs. He takes hold of Carter's phone, gun, and badges, then asks Alexei, his right hand, to escort Carter to the airport, as he has to return home. Alexei accompanies him to the car and asks him not to create any trouble. Carter sits in the car impotently, and the driver rides it off. Williams cunningly commands Alexei to arrange some men, who will abduct Carter from the plane as soon as he lands. Alexei nods in affirmation. When the car slows down at the entrance of an alley, Carter runs out of the car. Then he mingles into the crowd, wearing his hood. From an outdoor restaurant, he picks up the car keys from a table inconspicuously, and walks off. Meanwhile, Williams, along with Olivetti, reaches the event destination. His guards help Olivetti wear a bulletproof vest for his safety, before going on stage. Olivetti looks discombobulated upon seeing a massive crowd. Williams appeases his discomfort, affirming he just needs to sit on the stage wearing a smile. Williams goes to the podium and starts the speech. Olivetti is sitting on a chair, confused. Carter rushes in and joins the crowd, listening to Williams' speech. Concurrently, a van stops outside the U.S. Embassy and 3 men burst out of it. One of them goes toward the door of the embassy to install a bomb. Then they all move back and blow up the embassy. In the event, Williams makes up the story of the robbery of U.S. aid by cyber terrorists. He adds that they are gathered to castigate the robbers for the people of Ukraine. Olivetti starts panting. Alexei goes over to him to make him relax. When he approaches Olivetti, he shoots him down. Williams looks back after hearing the shot, and Olivetti shoots him in the head too. The people panic and start running in chaos. Carter stands there, stunned. Olivetti pulls out the small case of chips from Williams' pocket and steps down the stage, shooting the guards coming his way. Then he throws away his glasses, jumps on a truck full of his men, and races off. A biker has been waiting for him at a distance. The biker takes the case of chips from him and rides off to the other side. Carter hijacks a car and starts chasing the truck. Whereas Ross, who is on security assistance at the event, jumps on a bike and tails behind the biker. It moves off-road. Carter shoots down the man sitting on the back of the truck, then starts following again. In a small alley, the biker falls, losing his balance. Ross reaches him and hits the helmet on his head, and he falls unconscious. Ross takes the case out of his pocket. While in the truck, Olivetti laughs, holding the chips in his hand. At the next checkpoint, the police officers have been waiting for the truck with shooting orders. When the truck arrives, the police start firing, but to no avail, as the truck crushes the checkpoint bar and accelerates. Carter storms behind the truck. When they reach a bit farther, Carter races his car in front of the truck. A police officer, who has aimed for the truck already, shoots down the driver of the truck. Olivetti pushes his lifeless body aside and slips into the driver's seat, laughing hysterically. He hurls Carter's car from behind and accelerates again. Carter's car loses its balance and stops with a jerk. He grunts with pain and furiously starts the car again. On the way, Ross contacts him, informing him that the truck has been spotted in an industrial complex, 20 miles northeast. He adds that he is on his way. Carter stops the car outside the industrial complex and creeps in, holding his pistol. He finds the truck, but is disgruntled to see the driver's body there. Then he starts moving inside, while Olivetti is looking at him, standing on a dark railing. Carter enters another room, where he finds Olivetti's passport and a bag of money. He slips out of the room and starts prowling round looking for Olivetti. He finds him in a corner, pointing a gun toward him. Olivetti asks Carter in a calm manner to drop the pistol and he will unveil the truth. Carter obeys. Olivetti drops the gun too and kicks it toward Carter, saying that his life is at Carter's mercy once again. Carter grabs the gun and points it toward him, stipulating he surrenders and hands over the chips. Olivetti brings forth the chips calmly and questions Carter to whom he will give the chips, as he doesn't have any badges, and he has no idea who to trust. Then he wears an army cap, revealing his identity as a patriotic spy, who is considered a martyred soldier by his family in his country, but the reality is that he has been forced to hide, to protect the solidarity of his country and exterminate the traitors. Carter is startled to hear this. He offers Carter to join him, as he has found goodness in him, so they can use the money to rebuild people's lives. Ross rolls into the entrance of the complex by that time. When Olivetti hears the sound outside, he draws another shotgun from the truck, asserting that the time has come to eliminate Carter. Ross, who is looking for them outside, hears the gunshot and follows the sound. After a while, Ross comes out, after not finding anything in the building. He goes into deep shock after seeing Carter with a head cover, inside his car. He runs to rescue him, but the car blows up. He sits on the floor, dejected, after losing his friend. In the next scene, we see Ross sitting with an investigation officer, who asks him about the assassination of Senator George Williams and Carter. But Ross nonchalantly refuses to give any statement, as the information is classified. Then he leaves the place. The next day, when he checks out from the hotel, disheartened, the receptionist hands him an envelope. He slips it into his pocket. When he reaches the train station, he opens the envelope and smiles cheerily, when he finds Carter's lucky coin in it. Let's hold here and travel back in time, to when Olivetti held the gun to execute Carter. Carter drops the gun. Olivetti states that to join him, he has to hide his identity for the continuation of the good work and to remove the power-hungry from their posts. Carter doesn't want to do it, as in that way he might lose his identity, his family, and his friends. Olivetti convinces him that he is a good man, and that if he gives the chips to the men in power, they will just use him and then throw him in a quiet ditch. But if he joins him, he can help him take all that money to those who are suffering the ravages of war. Carter chooses to live a life behind the curtain, reckoning the protracted amelioration of his country. Then they don Carter's jacket on the carcass of the truck driver and cover his head with a cloth. Carter fires a shot to distract Ross. They slide the body into Carter's car, along with a time bomb, and hide at a distance. When they see Ross coming out and running toward the car, seeing his friend's body, Carter pushes the button and blasts the car. A single night changes the destiny of Carter, from an agent to no agent, then to a man no more. But Ross knows that his friend is breathing, somewhere in the wide world.